listening to a town hall meeting on the water issue, which of course will be on the ballot on November the 7th. We are live from the main branch of the Lexington Public Library downtown on News Talk 590 WVLK. Vice Mayor Mike Scanlon advocating for the vote no for local control side. Foster Ackerman Jr., the Chief Counsel for Bluegrass Flow, advocating for those who say vote yes for local control. And again, anybody in our audience that has a question for either one or both of our participants, we have microphones set up for you. Please approach the microphones if you would like.
Cruiser, I'd like to respond to a question that Mike raised here, and it is whether anything has been done wrong during the time period that RWE has owned our local water system. And I'm surprised he's forgotten that while it was attempting to collect sewer charges on behalf of the Urban County government, it failed to correctly account for over $500,000 of those charges and had to be called to account by the Urban County government and asked to audit its books. It also violated one of the conditions of ownership imposed by the Public Service Commission by declaring and paying a $800,000 quarterly dividend without first seeking the approval of the Public Service Commission. And the Public Service Commission, in an order entered in that case, criticized the company for doing that.
All right, Mr. Scanlon, any response to that?
Now, this is where we talk about facts and what the real facts are. We talked about the public's right, the government's need to take over a company that has done something that endangers the service of the water company, that endangers the service of the citizens. What happened was a billing error. The water company failed to collect a sufficient amount of money. We all know that the audit report came out today. We've all read that report, and if there was something nuclear in that report, we'd be hearing about all that tonight. This company made the mistake. They immediately paid back the money when they arrived at a sum. It was a very transparent process. You know, my business makes mistakes. The Herald Leader makes mistakes. The radio station makes mistakes. I would welcome to see the government that I serve in right now be as transparent, admitting their mistakes and cleaning up the mistakes and getting such a good audit review as this government did today.
Mr. Ackerman, let me follow up on something there, because whether or not the water company's done anything wrong or not, their own surveys, and the figure may be a little bit high, but nonetheless, would you not say that it's fair to admit that most people in town are happy with the quality of the water service, are happy with the rates? Their figure's 93% customer satisfaction. They're probably more popular than city government. Sorry, Mr. Scanlon, but
everybody's more popular than city government.
Despite what you pointed out, would you not acknowledge that the water company, as it has been run historically, is looked upon favorably by the customers and the people here?
As a general statement from the individual consumer's viewpoint, yes, I would say that everybody is satisfied with the water delivery to the extent that it's delivered. We've been under a supply deficit for a long time that hasn't been solved. There have been many players. I'm not laying that solely at the feet of the water company, but it's been a major player in the process for trying to solve that. But the question is not, as Mike would interpret the statutes, whether you've got to be a bad or troubled company in order for the government to exercise its right. The statute has no qualification that says you can condemn a utility only if it's in trouble. It simply says the government, which had the franchise in the first place and would operate a system itself if it did not award a franchise, has the right to go back and recover the water system, in this case, under municipal ownership.
And let's remember that franchise that is awarded is well paid for it with money every single year, and a 93% satisfaction rate among guests is something that me as a business owner would be proud to obtain, and the folks sitting in this room that work for the water company should be very proud of. I don't think the government could meet that standard.
Mike, do you know what they paid for it?
Do I know what they paid for what?
For the franchise.
I'll bet you're dying to tell me.
For a 20-year franchise that is generating $5 million a year in profits, in 1995 they paid $100.
And what do they pay per year, Mr. Ackerman?
For the franchise, they paid $100 and charged the government $2 million a year to rent the fire hydrants. The money's flowing that way.
Smart lawyers can sometimes out-talk smart businessmen. And I can see the fact that you can out-talk me on that, but let's focus on the fact that let's concede for now that the city does pay that $2 million. Where's that $2 million going to go? Is that going to disappear in revenue if the city owns it? And who's going to provide the hydrants and the pressure behind those hydrants to take care of our houses? We forget exactly what that $2 million does.
Well, to answer your question directly, if Lexington owns the water system, it will supply the pressure, it will own the fire hydrants, and the city will save the $2 million.
You know, that statement reminds me of a debate we were having in a council meeting a couple of years ago where the city did not have enough money to fill up the pools. And we had to close a couple of the swimming pools down because we didn't have enough money to fill them up. And I remember Sandy Schaefer looking up and telling that group, you know, if we owned this water company, we could just fill those swimming pools up because the water would be ours. It never dawned on her, where is the money going to come from to pay for that water? Foster still hasn't told me where the money's going to come from to pay for those hydrants if the city's not there to pay the $2 million. Is it going to come out of the ratepayers, Foster?
When we buy the water company and issue the bonds to acquire the assets, we acquire the fire hydrants and all of the system, all the pipes, all the water towers, all the treatment facilities, all of the equipment, and the building. That gets retired by revenues from existing revenues for supply of water. So there'll be no price increases to anybody, but there will be a $2 million savings to the city, which then owns, instead of rents, its fire hydrants.
Foster, when you do the math as a businessman, you can't come into an organization, finance 100% of its acquisition cost, which is hundreds of millions of dollars, reduce the revenue by $2 million and still show a profit. Foster, that just isn't going to happen, and you know that.
Okay, well, I've got another $9 million to put on the table then.
Well, let's have that.
All right, there's $5 million a year in dividends that leave the state of Kentucky that would be retained earnings by the local water authority, and there's $4 million in property taxes and other taxes that the water company pays that an exempt local authority would not pay.
Okay, so the first thing you're going to do when you own the water company, I guess, is call up Stu Silberman and say, you have $4 million less to run your school system. We're going to tell the library system they don't collect as much money. When the property taxes go down, that money has to come out of somewhere. And this is where I want us to stay focused on the facts. The money just doesn't evaporate if the water company doesn't continue to pay its taxes. So the $4 million just isn't there, and somebody's going to suffer because that money isn't. Now let's talk about that $5 million dividend. As a businessman, and anybody listening to this and watching this tonight knows that when you buy a business and you use 100% debt like we would be using, and when you have to pay a full, rich market price for that, you never make a profit. For Foster to say that if we own the water company, we're going to make $5 million a year, nobody in Flow contends that. There's not one piece of arithmetic, not the second best restaurateur in Lexington is going to tell me, well, I think he might be the first.
Let me step in here, and are you like me beginning to wonder why I'm here?
Mike, shall we land back?
This is very good.
We want you back, but
Thank you.
Cruiser, let's just acknowledge that when Foster says if we own the company, we're going to make $5 million, it just ain't so. There's not a businessman on the planet.
All right.
So it would be retained earnings available to the company.
That's not correct. Foster, I'm not sure you could give the definition of what retained earnings is on a balance sheet because the earnings have to be there. Foster, can you give me the definition of what retained earnings is on a balance sheet?
No, I'm not an accountant. I'm a lawyer. So when I talk
Then let's
to you
stick
about
to terms that we know we
statutes,
understand, okay?
Let me take a question from the audience. Sir,